Welcome to Season 2 of the Shop Stool Podcast, a podcast for woodworkers and the maker community in general. With Joey Chalk from King Post Timberworks, Bryan Cush from Sawdust Bureau, and Robin Lewis from RobinLewisMakes. Hi everyone, I hope you're all very well. This is episode 16, Season 2 of the Shop Stool Podcast. As always, I want to start by introducing my two co-hosts. Joey, how's it going today?
Very good, Robin. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. And Bryan, how are you?
I'm great, Robin. How are you?
Good, good. And my name is Robin Lewis. Welcome to the show, everyone. So, just a bit of inside storytelling, I guess. For those of you who listened to the show last week, you probably wouldn't have even noticed, but we had this huge technical drama where Bryan's recording cut out halfway through,
right.
And then it got lost, and it was we were trying to stitch it together. It turned into a bit of a challenge, let's call it. Bryan actually ended up re-recording the first half of that show based off of what Joey and I said.
Oh my god!
And you did such a good job. It was incredible.
I think it took me 2 hours to record that 20-minute section.
Holy crap.
Yeah, that'll teach me.
So the first half didn't record and your second half did?
Yeah, the second half from halfway on was perfect. But yeah, the
That's
first
crazy.
half, trying to remember what questions I asked and what questions I answered, it was really hard. But we got there in the end.
It fitted in perfectly, and that's why I say probably no one would have even been any the wiser. There were a couple of spots where you could the jokes were very disjointed.
Right.
Yeah, we could cut them together. But I just thought I'd mention that as well. That's why the last episode was a bit delayed. So instead of coming out on the Sunday, it came out on the Wednesday.
Sorry about that, guys.
That's why we just had to sort that out.
I didn't hear anything from you, so I just thought everything's good. Didn't know anything.
Because I recorded my workshop as well. We've had torrential rain for pretty much all this week in Melbourne. So on the tin roof, you wouldn't have been able to hear me at all. So I had to wait for a half-decent day to be able to record it.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's funny.
Yeah.
So,
Hold on.
Yeah. So you guys might have seen the new video that I put out this week.
Yes.
I know, Joey, I know you've watched it. I don't know if you have, Bryan.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the kitchen island bench, and this is what I've sort of been talking about for the last couple of weeks. Yeah. And before I started this video, something that I thought was quite interesting is, don't get me wrong, I don't think the idea is groundbreaking. I don't think it's this phenomenally interesting thing, but I couldn't find anyone who had powered an island bench in the same way. Everyone runs their electrics through the cabinetry. So if you want to pull the cabinetry out, what do you do? And it was just really interesting that I could not find anyone who would... Because, Joey, you've obviously done a lot of these installs before.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the wiring run interestingly or differently through the
I guess
through the
I
cabinet?
have seen similar things where large rebates with some kind of conduit, but never in a total freestanding piece like that. I have seen it in what do you call it? I guess they call it a peninsula that comes off a kitchen bench, which is not a fully detached island. And I have seen a similar kind of cabling buried in a leg or something like that. But I think what's interesting with your piece is it looks like a table that you should be able to move around. You should be able to pick it up and move it. And I think that's what is kind of that role reversal, which I really thought was an interesting... and just, I'm sure you'll probably get negative comments on the fact, you can't move your table around and blah, 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 blah. And or someone's going to come into the house and... not know what's going on. But
try and lift it up.
You can tell people, so that's fine. But I just thought it was cool because it's super minimalist and it's almost doing a little magic trick, which is pretty cool.
And that's why I got a licensed electrician to do a bit of consulting on it, because I was honestly expecting him to say, nope, no chance. This will never fly,
right.
Because it looks too much like a table. You can't. It doesn't look like it's built in enough. You can't run wiring through this. And he was pretty good about it. And he said, "Yeah, it's fine. Just his logic, and I go into it in the video, was that as long as you you go to as much effort as possible to stop people from putting something through that leg into the wire. It's got to be known that there's conduit or wiring in there. He said, then that's pretty much it. My only concern with it looking like a table, as I said, is that someone might try and lift it up, and because it's screwed into the floorboards, not into the joist. They
have to be He-Man to lift himself up and the floor. So
yeah, that's true, and there are some pretty big screws in there, so it should be fun. But yeah, so the main reason I want to talk about this is many months ago, many episodes ago, Joey, you and I talked about using the CFP, clear floor protection. And at that time, I think I just started using the water-based polyurethane. Right. And I remember saying to you, it's so easy and quick and it's great to put on, but it's always a little bit tacky.
Right. I've never had that here. I think maybe it could be your climate there, but yeah, there's interesting takeaway from it.
So I'd been using the interior furniture version of Cabot's water-based polyurethane. I tried a different brand as well, had the same results, and it always sort of just put me off that water-based polyurethane because it was always like, I like it, but it's not hard. It's not that rock solid like oil-based polyurethane. Tried the flooring stuff, perfect.
Yeah, it's
absolutely
way different.
Perfect. Yeah. Because I remember when we talked about it, I thought, there can't be that much in it. It can't be that different.
It's quite different. Yeah, and like after you've sanded off that first rough coat, it just goes on like a dream after that.
Yeah,
silky smooth.
Robin, had you seen the Cabot's benchtop water-based poly? So they've got the floor, they've got the benchtop, and then they've got the CFP. Have you tried that, or have you tried that?
No, I've never. I don't even think I've seen it actually.
I saw it in Bunnings for the first time this week.
I imagine it's the CFP floor rebranded, because when I talked to the technical people here at Cabot's about could I use it on a bench top, they said absolutely, we recommend it because it's way harder because it's made for floors, and it's no different to anything else they would sell. It's just it sells better as a flooring grade poly than bench tops because people are buying big buckets of it. So from then on, I was literally buying probably almost 2 10-litre buckets a month we were going through at one point, which is that stuff has just went on everything I did because I did a lot of clear work for whatever reason, and stuff's awesome. And it dries in first coat's dry in 15 minutes. It's awesome.
Yeah, and I think I probably got up to around 8 coats on the top, but I lost track because you just keep going and going and going, and you're busy working on something else.
That's cool.
Yeah. Because that's what you want.
I had to refinish a vanity that I did about
I saw that
15 months ago for a friend of mine, and I had used oil-based poly on it, like a wipe-on poly. And probably done somewhere in the region of about 5 to 6 coats of wipe-on poly on it. It was super smooth. It was a great finish. And then within 15 months, it was crap. You could feel the fibres of the wood coming through. And this is all kiln-dried black butt. You could feel the fibres behind the sink where water had pooled. It had fully flaked the poly. So I did a bit of research, and everybody's advice was water-based. Poly tends to hold up better in humid environments and on bench tops than an oil-based poly, which I wouldn't have expected. I would have just naturally thought the oil-based would have had a longer lifespan to it.
I think the wipe-on aspect is interesting too, because I think if recently the Wood Whisperer on Instagram was showing some pictures of a wipe-on poly stool and a tabletop he made for his house. And after, I think, less than a year, it was all just flaking off, and the stool looked horrendous. It looked terrible. And it's just the film thickness, I think, is part of the problem. The wipe-on poly is so thin, and because you're kind of wiping a lot of it off, I think you kind of need to do, a heck of a lot of coats to get anywhere near, rolling something or spraying something on. And so, in which case, the wipe-on poly for different products is not a good idea, I think.
The viscosity difference of the oil-based wipe-on poly compared to the whatever they call the one-coat water-based finish is incredible.
Right. Yeah,
I mean,
right.
it feels like watered down glue. It's so thick and goopy.
It's pretty thick, isn't it?
But yeah, it did a really nice job.
I find the water-based stuff flattens out just as good as a good oil base as well. Like it doesn't. I think it used to be like it. I feel like when it first came out, it was very lumpy and, like you say, glumpy, and it wouldn't settle and flow. But I think they've come a long way nowadays, and it flows and flattens out just as good as anything else. Which is why you can use a roller, and a lot of the pattern of the roller just flattens away, and it becomes kind of pretty glassy.
Yeah, it's just that first coat that you just got to get right. But having said that, that it took quite a while to dry that first coat. But the difference between 1 hour after applying it and 4 hours, it's changing over that period quite drastically. So even though it's dried after an hour, I found that after a few hours that all those lines and all of those streaks had just faded. So it does take that period of time to
Now, you were
settle.
using the beach, which is pretty hard compared to, I would say, to anything you've used. And it's not great at soaking in a lot of finish, like those really hardwoods. And so you also get more kind of pooling on the top, which is good for getting a thicker film finish, but sometimes can take longer to dry. And how did you find working with the beach?
Yeah, fine. I didn't have any, because I know that you've said before that it is very hard, and I think it is. It's obviously certainly the hardest blonde wood that I've ever used.
Right.
But in terms of the gums and stuff that I've worked on in the past,
Okay. Right.
it's still softer than that. But certainly it's the hardest wood that I've put the water-based polyurethane on. Absolutely. Right. But no, I didn't notice any huge difference.
Cool.
That slow drying time must be the humidity up there, because I find even if it goes on a relatively thick coat, it is touch dry so quickly.
Yeah, we can do. Today we were doing some water-based priming, white primer, and with 4 little cabinet doors. And by the time you did the 4th one, you go back and flip the other door over and just do the other side. It was touch dry. It's not dead dry, but enough that if you turn it over, it's not going to stick. And we just keep going, keep doing that in a rotation. And you're only talking about 8 minutes. That was crazy.
Yeah. So something with the project, and I wanted to get your guys' opinion on this. When I put the rails in, when I mortised them in, the base of that rail is not sitting hard up against the leg inside the mortise. And I thought about this more during this project because of how heavy the tabletop was. But if you picture the tenon going into the mortise, the underside of that tenon is not sitting on the wood of that
the edge
mortise.
of the mortise. Yeah.
Do you think that is important that it does that, or do you think that glue bond is way strong enough to take that?
I'd say the glue bond is heaps, because they look like they're about 80 mil thick, 80 mil wide rails, and most of that was tenon. I think in practice it would be good to have a mechanical connection there and not just relying on the glue. Yeah. But we're all just people. We don't get things 100% right. And the good thing about woodworking in the modern era is that the glue is stronger than wood, especially on cheek faces that were router cut. The mortises were router cut, so you had a pretty clean face, and that glue bond should be pretty bloody good. If it was like a fully hand chiseled mortise, it's not going to be a great finish for just a glue bond, I would say.
Yeah, I'd say you're totally fine, to be honest. Something I've sort of noticed with my domino in the last few weeks when I'm using it to do mortise and tenon and stuff, using the offset pegs that you flip down to sort of, it's supposed to give you this perfect alignment fit. I don't know whether it's my domino's been dropped a few times, but it is slightly out of alignment, and no matter how I move the fence to correct it, it's never perfect. So what I always tend to do now is I'll do a tight domino plunge on one side of the joint and a loose on the other, and all I'm using them for is alignment on the, because all the strength is coming from that long grain gluing action. It's not the domino bottoming out in the slot. Most of that slot is going to be filled with glue anyway, which is going to give you it's going to act like wood inside where it was loose. So
That's a good point.
I honestly wouldn't like. I agree with Joey. I think if you're machining your mortises, it's gonna be tight and strong.
Because the way I do my mortises is with a drill and then a router. So they always end up slightly, concave at the bottom. But I guess that's an interesting point there, Brian. If you're close enough, you could technically just fill that up with glue, or it will fill up with all the squeeze out anyway. So you won't have it. Like I think to be fair on mine, there's probably a bit more space than there is glue.
But that's right.
But yeah, if you really want to.
But if that is a concern, because PVA isn't great, a PVA will cure to a hard lump, and it takes a while when it's pretty thick. It's not good at doing it really, but if that is a concern, just fill it up with epoxy. Like that's what it's for. It just it will do the trick. Because sometimes we make mistakes and we cut the tenon a little bit wrong, and that's it. So
yeah, that's interesting. I've always done it like that for tables, and I've never even crossed my mind. But because this was such a beast of a chunk of wood going on there, and because it's quite a long span, I just suddenly thought, is this just going to pop under the weight?
I think what you'll find though is, if you think about it, the weight is on the legs. Yeah. The rails are there to try and hold that timber flat. And to be honest, if that beech wants to actually curl up, nothing's really going to stop that. Those little figure eight jigs underneath, they're just going to pull up out of the rails anyway. So
and that beech is probably strong enough to take its own weight across I think it's 1.7. So you almost didn't even need the rails.
That. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I mean, you need it to stiffen up the table kind of itself. So yeah, I thought it was a cool project. You know what I thought was the coolest thing is that you mixed the flat pack kitchen in with it, and it looked really custom at the end. But you paid whatever you paid, not a heck of a lot, I imagine, for that flat pack unit, and it looks just fine. The only thing I wasn't sure is at the back of those units, do they still have exposed edges on them? You'll have to cover that or whatever.
So I didn't go into that in the video because I can't even remember if you see it in the video, because at the moment they are exposed, and I will eventually get to a sheet of MDF to cover that. Yeah. But because I was working to a deadline because of the sponsor, I just ran out of time. I don't have a ute to pick up big sheets, so I've got to hire it. Yeah. And so I just couldn't get to it. But so I do need to cover that. The other cool thing that I didn't go into in the video is those drawers are they call them raw drawers. So the brand is Caboodle. And you can buy the MDF drawer fronts. And I painted those myself.
Right, okay.
I was a bit nervous about it, but it actually turned out pretty cool.
Well, because it all finished, and I actually thought you did some magic, because I was thinking it was like a thermowrapped formed drawer front, and I thought it looked really consistent sheen-wise and everything with the rest, but you painted it all and it looked fine.
It's those rollers, Joey, that you pointed out last year we had almost a whole episode dedicated to those little 100 mil rollers that you use.
The foam ones?
The Monarch,
or nap.
the little nap
ones. Yeah,
nap ones.
That has revolutionized my finishes, because I just use those for basically everything now. Yeah. And on that, when I posted pictures of that bench top, everybody wanted to know how I got that finish.
Yeah, I've never done clear coat with those. I've never thought about doing it, and obviously it seemed to work because I use the pads for that kind of thing. But that's interesting.
Yeah. I've got a good foam roller tip if you're ever looking for one. If you're working with oil-based stains or finishes or whatever, you don't really want to be cleaning the foam because it tends to break down with terps or whatever. Wrap it in a plastic bag, stick it in the fridge. And it's good to use for a couple of days if you're reapplying the same finish. It's really, really hard.
Well, this is sort of what Joey introduced me to a year or two ago. Is the roller comes with a little plastic tub.
Yeah.
It comes with a cover, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I'm going the tight arse route and just the plastic bag.
Well, these ones, like I think I said when I did a little video on it, we will sometimes we've got enough now that we'll actually write what colour is on each roller, because we do like 3 or 4 different whites all the time, and so we just keep a roller for each different white. And it might stay in there for 2 months before we use it, and we just open it up and away we go, and it's still wet, ready to go.
Good.
And it's just perfect. It's such a good thing. Monarch actually sent me a whole package of stuff over from Australia for that video, like about a year after the fact.
Oh, awesome!
They came across it and said, "Hey, we want to send you some stuff," and so naturally it got lost in the mail, and they had to send it twice. But anyway,
yeah, that's pretty awesome. So, for anyone who's following Bryan on Instagram, you would have seen that judging that's been going on. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about that, Bryan?
Yeah, so it was the Wood Review Year 12 Student Awards that they asked me to get on board with the judging, and I thought, yeah, it'll be a bit of fun, be pretty easy. Wow, it took a lot of work. I think there was 110 entrants. And the quality of the student work is just, it's just incredible. Considering
how old are these people?
17, 18.
Jeez, yeah.
And a lot of them were done over 2 years. They sort of do 6 months of just learning the skills, coming up with the concept design, and then they make it in their second year. But some of them designed and made and learned the skills in 1 year. So if anyone heads over to Wood Review's website, they have a lot of the videos as well. So the students they had to submit a statement of what the piece was, their design intent, finished photos of it, and then it was an option to video it and sort of show the process. And I'd look at some of the pieces and go, no, it's, a teacher's done a lot of that work. And then you watch the videos of these 17-year-old, 18-year-olds making these incredible pieces of furniture. So yeah, I really suggest people to head over, or you can buy a hard copy of it or a digital copy of the magazine, and I think it's quite a lot. I think there's maybe a 10-page spread on the different projects, but the winning entries, like Katya Katarina's pod chair, geodesic, kind of triangular, it is the effort that she went to, the clamping calls, it's amazing.
So I wanted to know, do you know, so she essentially glued up a whole bunch of triangles and formed a half sphere. And are they all like butt joint and dominoed together or something?
Yep.
Or is it like splines,
all
tiny groove splines? Or?
All dominoed together.
Yeah.
I think she used like XL dominoes. They're all cut at a slight taper on the... using a jig that she 3D printed the angles so that it is crazy.
Yeah, because I was going to say, like, to me, what's impressive is doing that without this massive compounding error, like the jig and the process. And she's essentially every angle is a compound angle cut.
Yep.
It's what I guess a 30-degree triangle, and then like whatever, like a 5-degree compound on it or something like that. And to me, to have that come together and like work and create the thing, that is a massive thing. And the legs on that thing,
I know,
that's so genius.
Yeah,
I thought that's such a cool heavy base for this quite a large chair.
Yep.
They're actually pretty chunky, but they're the right shape that it just works.
That's it. Like the first time I saw it, I wasn't looking terribly closely at it, and I saw the silhouette, and I was like, it's got these big chunky legs on what should, if you had even like a sort of a steel kind of pin legs on it. But then I looked at the angles and the tapers that she'd done on the legs, and it's just fantastic. And then you sort of take it all the way through to the upholstery. And it's this kind of wave-like triangular form in the inside.
Right.
Like, it's a masterpiece. It's a brilliant, brilliant piece of furniture.
Did she do the upholstery too?
She didn't do the upholstery, no.
Right.
No,
That's
they were able
enough.
to outsource for that.
I'm just having a look at that upholstery now. I didn't even realize that it was upholstered. I just assumed that there was like a bit of a something, just like a... like with a deck chair, how you just have a loose piece of foam.
Yeah, just an insert of something. Yeah, no. It is individual triangles that are... and I mean, even though she hasn't done the upholstery, to sort of to brief the upholsterer and come up with that design. Yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful piece. So she's going on to study architecture next year. And some of the other pieces as well. There was a hoop chair won the best design. I don't know whether you've seen that on Wood Review.
The double
it's a very, very simple. The double hoop, the simplicity of it is brilliant.
It's like I saw it as a captain's chair, like a classic English captain's chair, but it had an extra hoop on it, which I thought was just cool. Like it's like a 2 hula hoops meeting or something.
And trying to get trying to get the taper right and get them to touch without looking clumsy, or do you leave a gap between? I think it was executed really well.
That's what I saw when I saw that piece. I said, how the hell did he work out to plane the angle and have them meet without just doing it without having it be gappy is difficult. Difficult at best.
So he's now going on to. I've been chatting with the teacher since, and he is going on to do his carpentry apprenticeship, I think. So he's obviously got some skills. The best hand skills was a acoustic guitar and a guitar stand and seat done by Mats Lee, which again is such an achievement for a school. A school leaver to be able to produce that in such a short period of time. Definitely worth checking out. It wasn't an original design, which was probably the only thing that held it back from really challenging from the best overall. So we were trying to reward originality. I think it's a good way to teach. And Ben Percy, their tutor, you can tell the way he teaches that he's constantly driving the students to do new things. Whereas in some of the other students' work, you could see they were direct replications of well-known pieces, which is fine. But
I'm just trying to work out, like in my high school woodwork class,
Spice Rack.
There is no way that anything that would be even considered to be put into a competition was I don't even think. I think in my last year there, I made a triangle bedside table thing, and which my in-laws still have actually. It was the only piece to come out that wasn't pine. Everyone else was just pine, like whatever it was, some awful nailed together awfulness. And what high schools are these that are suddenly letting kids make like that winning pod chair? I mean, I can't, like the hours that have got to go into it and the follow through and a teacher willing to look at a drawing or a concept and say, okay, this is a 2-year project or a year project, let's go for it. My teacher just would have laughed. He said no.
But it's not even about what high school's letting you do that. I just think back to when I was in high school and I was just trying to get out of there as quick as possible.
Oh yeah, well that's
I wouldn't have thought to put that much effort into just about anything.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
It's just the mentality.
It shows you where the passion is, eh?
It's beautiful.
And it's I have to say, like Wood Review and all their sponsors for supporting it as well and making it something worth entering. It's not just a pat on the back. It is a very prestigious prize to win, and you get a really really good cash prize or sponsored prize at the end of it. So it's really nice, and it was a good thing to be involved in. But I know what you mean. Like you're talking about like the difference of the pine stuff that would have come out of schools, and they're just trying to give you the cheapest material versus now they're teaching the students to source a local product.
Right.
I think there's a lot of furniture makers that could look at the way the students went about sourcing locally as opposed to importing.
Probably. Yep.
With your judging process, do you follow a particular process to you check this off, or is there a lot of that piece just moved me, that's getting a higher rating?
So I tried not to look at them and sort of pick my favourites at the start. I had a spreadsheet and weighted it. I don't know, marks out of 50, and I had sort of 20 for originality, 10 for execution, 10 for difficulty, and I went through and did an initial grading and then worked them out into like a top tier, a mid tier, and a base tier. And then the top tier, I went back and sort of tried to pick out my top 10 pieces And then Kelly Parker, who's an American woodworker, fantastic woodworker. Her and I had a Skype session, and we just went through. And we actually, completely separately and having different judging criteria, we picked out pretty much the same 10 projects. I think there was one or two that we had a conversation about, but it was just how to establish an order between some of the pieces was very, very tricky. But
did you get to see them in person, or
we didn't? No. It is like seeing a piece up close versus seeing a photograph, but having the videos to show the process of them making it, I think, made a huge difference to the way we judged. Just seeing students make it as opposed to here's my final piece. It's never quite the same.
I was going to say, if you had a room full of 100 pieces, I feel like you would just walk in and go like, nope, not that one, and then you would go, probably, and that one. So almost immediately, I think you'd feel it. Because there must have been ones where you saw a picture and you're just like, no.
There's a few, but I mean, you got to remember that they're kids and
absolutely.
Everything.
But it's just that's how it goes. Like it's a competition in the end, and it's like you just go, okay, it's not up to par, but that one is, and then you just automatically start in your head making kind of a hierarchy, even if you're not assigning it numbers or anything. Yeah,
it's interesting as well the way judging a contest like this, as opposed to usually it's me trying to enter pieces for competitions, has made me think about the way I enter it, and
it's interesting.
Really keeping descriptions about things succinct and not sort of rambling and having these huge paragraphs about your piece and all these different intents, and making sure you've got your order of photographs right as well. Your first photo is your hero shot, and then sort of go into the details to sort of show the way the piece comes together. But no, it was go out and buy Wood Review and check it out. It's definitely worth a look.
Yeah, it's interesting that they've got a hard copy of it. I guess that'd be quite a nice memorabilia piece to just get a hold of.
Yeah. I think it's every 2 months the magazine comes out. It's a really nice thing, and it does support local make. It's so hard at the minute to get, because magazines are sort of struggling in bigger design magazines are struggling. Industry. It is a little bit. Yeah. They're now trying to charge even more for advertorials and features and all that kind of stuff. And it's just beyond the means of most independent makers. But the support that a hobbyist magazine like Wood Review, and it's now trying to cross over to be a professional magazine as well. It's really it's a great thing to support the industry. Another shout out that I'd give would be Green Magazine. I don't know if you guys have seen Green.
No.
You compare it to some of the other design mags, and they say, "Oh, we'd love to feature your piece," and you're like, "Oh, great," and then they send you a bill. You're like, "No, I'm okay." But magazines like Green Magazine are really good for supporting independent makers.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Maybe next year. Oh no, that's right. It's only for students. I was going to say maybe next year we should all put forward a piece to one of those competitions and see what we can come up with.
There's loads of other competitions, Robin. There's the Vivid.
That's my worst nightmare, putting a piece in to be judged. I couldn't. It's hard that I could do it.
Here's my soul. What do you think of me?
Yeah.
I don't know whether Adam mentioned it when we had him on the show, but as part of the Wood Dust Festival, he arranged a critique session.
Oh wow.
So you brought your piece in person to a panel of 3 judges, and 30-40 people sat around talking about your piece after your doing your presentation. That is bravery.
That'd be interesting.
It was really interesting, and I think people got a lot out of it. There was some Lee Sinclair, the furniture maker from Queensland. He brought his stuff down on a plane from Brisbane for the critique. Jeez. And then packed it back up and flew back up. So I think people get a lot of... it's just trying to get that peer review. And as you say, seeing a photograph and putting it on Instagram and having everybody comment, "Oh, I love it, oh, it looks great," as opposed to actually critiquing something when you see it in person and go, "I like the way you've done that, but this would have really made the piece." You don't get comments like that on social media so much anyway from your peers. They tend to be you'll get some people go, I hate it, it's a load of shit, and you've got
it's either perfect or it's terrible. So you learn to take that with a grain of salt. Yeah,
being able to take critique is such an important. Like having gone through the design school route of going into architecture, it's like that is an industry where you have to learn to take critique, and it's not being done because it's a personal thing. It's being done to make you a better designer.
I think after doing YouTube videos for whatever it is, 6 years or something ridiculous, I always thought in the start that maybe the comment section was like a critiquing kind of area, but you can't write it down as a critique because it's going to read, depending on my mood, it's going to read really negatively or really nicely, and you don't tend to read things as a critique. You read it as an offense. And I think that's why now if I comment on something, it's usually just a nice thing saying, yeah, well, that's really good. I would love to expand my comment into this part that does this to me, and I think this part looks like this, but it's going to read to the person like you're just slagging them off. And I think that's the part of the social media, like commenting, critiquing thing that doesn't work. It doesn't translate very well until you're in person.
Matthias Wandel talked about this. I think he's been quite vocal about it in the past. So he's obviously a very big YouTuber, and he finds this niceness and all this pleasantness on YouTube. He thinks it's terrible because no one's learning, no one's growing because everyone's just being very nice. But then the other side of that, I've tried to be very neutral unless I know the person, quote unquote know the person. Like if we've built up a rapport. But there was one particular well-known YouTuber, and I'm not going to mention the name, but this particular YouTuber did something in a project. This was a few years ago, and I looked at that and I thought, that's not right. It was in a wet area, and they put some drawer units onto a bathroom vanity, and there was no silicone around the base, so you're going to wash your hands and that water's just going to pour in underneath and I remember sitting there at the keyboard going,
should I
do it? And then I wrote it and I was like, is that not, like, am I being neutral enough? And the response I got back was so
like defensive.
How could you? How could you be so horrible to judge me in that way and call me out? And I was just trying to be, nice about it, and not nice as in I know more about this than you. Just more of a, hey, you've probably already thought of this, but I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah.
And that stopped me. I've since then I've never wanted to do that kind of constructive advice or constructive criticism, because it's just not worth it. Because I walked away from that going, well, screw you then. I'm not going to bother with this.
Mm-hmm. So even if I get a comment like that, and I'm like, I agree with you, but it's just not the right forum. I can't just be on my phone having this big, long, complex, nuanced conversation over a few texts that are like 24 hours apart because you're on the other side of the planet, and it's just not going to happen. And so I tend just to like not say anything, which I guess people think I'm rude, but it's just you can't do it like that. So
no, but I think that's much better than getting defensive about it. Because if this person in question had just not said anything, it would have been a completely different outcome. But it was that defensive attacking me back as if I was attacking this person. And
Speaking of Matthias Wandel, how do you say it?
Matthias.
I just spent some money with one of his products. He made the Panther router. He invented the wooden version, and then it got sent to a guy in India who started making the aluminium version, and then they refined it down to a product that is like a commercial thing that's super accurate and whatnot. So I just spent a bucket load of money in Australia.
Sorry, so are you saying that the one that you got, that design, originated from Matthias Wandel?
Yeah, you go on his YouTube, you can see the original.
I just assumed that it had been around for 4 decades.
He designed it and then gave the plans out so people could build their own out of plywood. And there's plenty of people who have done that. And what I'd read is that the tolerances are just not quite there in a homemade version. Obviously, depending on what machinery you have to make it with.
What you make it out of, yeah.
And so this guy, I'm not sure how it got set up where the aluminium version was being made, but I remember looking at it maybe a year ago or more, a couple of years ago, and you could get it as like a kit set, I think, shipped from the States, or maybe it was shipped direct from India at that point. But it seemed a little bit dodgy at that point to me, because I was like, I'm dealing with like a third party in some other country and whatever. So I went to buy one this week, and the American reseller said there's one in Australia, buy it there. So that was good. So TimberCon?
TimberCon, yeah.
They've got one, so I picked one up from them. Had to organise some shipping over to me, which was like $400 or $500, which is outrageous.
Ouch.
Yeah. So all
That's
in,
exciting.
It's
Have you used one before, Joey?
No, I you know what? I've barely even watched the tutorial. I've just seen what it can do, and I'm like, I'll figure it out, and I'm going to buy one.
Yeah.
So do you have a goal for it? Like, is there a particular thing in mind?
So quite a while ago, I was talking about local, actually quite local to me, lady had stored a whole stack load of New Zealand kauri in her garage. It was like from a family farm from 100 years ago. It's just been, and she had like 12 cubic meters of the stuff stacked to the rafters. And so she passed on. Her family from Sydney flew over here to sort out her house. They came down to see me and said, take as much wood as you think it would take to make a whole lot of chairs. And I was like, okay, I'll just take some and we'll see what happens. So that job's come through now. I've got 12 chairs to make, and it's in what I would call a colonial style, in a way that we probably know from being in the Southern Hemisphere. Like, there's a colonial style that is not recognizable probably to any traditional person who knows chairs or ye olde styles. But it was like people came to the Southern Hemisphere, Australia, New Zealand, and made things in a style that worked with the skill set they had. And I think it evolved into like a middling of different styles, Georgian and Edwardian and Victorian, and everything just kind of got mixed together a little bit. And so that's what the style is. I've tried to make it as easy.
Is colonial the word to refer to that style? Because I know here in Australia we use the term federation quite a lot. So like you've got Federation green is a traditional green colour that they've used for however many hundreds of years. Bryan, you've probably got more info on that.
Oh, I mean, there's so much terminology that you upset different people by saying different things. But
I think it's so much. I think, and even here, like, there's different terms for different things depending on who you talk to, and so it's just you can think of it as a loosely Victorian chair style, 6 carvers and 6 whatever you call them that aren't carvers. And so I've got the Pantarata for that, because there is some crazy ass angles, and there's no way I'm going to do that without some repeatability.
No, that's what looks so good about the Pantarata. I was looking at the tutorial video done for TimberCon by Douglas Furr. It's got a really nice thing to center the timber in it. Have you seen that?
Real simple centering.
Genius. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I'm assuming that was in the original Matthias Wandel.
I believe
to go back
so.
And watch the video.
Yeah, it has definitely been refined from the plywood version, but I think mostly it's exactly the same.
I'm actually just looking at his YouTube channel now, and he's got a comparison test between his original one and I think the kit aluminium one, not the one that you've bought, but another one. So it'd be interesting to see.
Man, what a cool thing to have a notch on your belt. Eh? Like this all originated from me.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. I'm interested to see how it cuts. It looks simple. There's definitely going to be a learning curve to it. And the problem is that the first thing I want to do with it is these bloody complex compound angles. And I feel like I'm going to swear at it almost immediately because it's not going to be plug and play. But I will work it out. So.
And this is not something that the Domino could take care of?
No, not in a million years. I also want to get away from using the Domino for things like this because, like Brian, you were talking about your Domino not being accurate. I know that what's his name? Anton Gerner has been complaining about his dominoes, multiple dominoes, ever since I found him like 10 years ago. Yep. He buys one every time the warranty is just about to expire. He buys a new one so he can always have it, so he can replace the parts that inevitably don't work. And so my one has now decided to cut 2 bigger mortises in the smallest slot. It cuts a mortise that's wider than it should be, and they're not a tight fit. And I've always had issues with the fence just not being, the alignment not being bang on. So it's good enough for gluing up panels, but it's not good enough if I'm trying to join 2 things together dead flush or whatever on a finished project. And also, it's not going to do compound angles for me. So I really want to get into doing integral tenons, and that's the Panto Router is really the only way to do it in a quick, repeatable way. So I'm looking forward to it changing my workflow a little bit, and we've already started rethinking how we will do jobs that we usually do. We'll probably rethink them and use that instead, and hopefully it will make life easier.
Keep a square jar handy for that first week.
Workshop words. When is it supposed to be arriving?
Next Thursday evening.
Oh, cool. Very exciting.
So,
who knows?
So we might be hearing about it in the next episode then.
I'm not sure. That's when, because of all the taxes and duties, it will get held up, I'm sure, for at least a day or 2 before they even email me to say that I owe them $100 million in tax to get it, past customs. So, so all in, I think I'm spending more than $3,000 on this thing just to get it, bought and to my workshop. So, hey, it's a lot of money, but I don't think I've got any other choice with their work that it needs doing. So.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how it translates, because to date, I think the only person who I've ever seen use one is Matthias Wandel. So I'm looking forward to seeing quote-unquote layman use it and what the results
layman?
quote-unquote.
There's something called a multi-router, which is out there, and it's essentially was around before, I believe, and it's essentially doing the same thing, but it doesn't follow a guide. I don't believe it follows a guide like the Panto Router. And I know Philip Morley has one of those. There's a bunch of guys. I think Anton Gerner has one. Essentially,
I think they're even more expensive.
Yeah, they're much. I looked into them, and they're much more expensive.
$5,000 and up.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So it's an all cast iron kind of dealie, and it's a much more industrial version. But it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. All right, let's leave it there for today. So to everyone listening, I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please go ahead and give it a rating on iTunes. That really does help us out. The Shop Stool Podcast is available on iTunes and most other podcast apps. My name is Robin Lewis. Joey and Brian, thanks very much for hanging out today. Take care, everyone, and we will see you in the next one.
Sweet. See ya.
Thanks, guys. Catch you.